Yeah.
I'm also part of it.
Whoa!
Bro!
Bro, you're
That shocked the crap out of me. Dang.
deadly.
Sorry. I guess I have to play static playing on the carpet or something.
Yeah. And now some Scotch Guard.
Right.
Okay. Are we good, Ryan?
We're rolling.
We're rolling.
Oh, nice.
Rolling sound, whatever it is. All right. We're back. Episode 2 of Cruz On Crews with my beautiful co-host, Burton.
Yes.
Yes.
You are correct, sir.
And we have a special guest today.
Super special.
I got triple special and super special.
Super triple special.
And the bar is so high right now. So high.
If you hadn't heard of him, you probably don't do audio.
Right.
Probably in the lighting.
So true. Right.
Oh, if you're in lighting, you've heard of me.
Oh, you've heard of him.
Oh, yeah.
You want to introduce him, Burton?
Me?
Yeah, you introduced him.
You're giving me this privilege. Listen, you guys are picking up this right now after we've just completed previous Q&A
Interrogation.
and I got the privilege of sitting next to this individual. I'm going to tell you his name in a second, but I was blown away that someone has been this faithful to this industry and has really solidified themselves as a giant in this industry. I mean, some of the stories he shared today was just incredible, that we still have this individual with us with all of this to say. And I know, like, yeah, the mixing is one thing, but to hear the mind of someone who has been tested by this industry,
Yeah.
and tested by, you know, not just the mixing challenges, but the politics, the band in, you know, all of the interaction that you know, and then to still have this joy and still love this.
Yeah, yeah.
It's amazing to be, you know, and to witness this.
That part of it's fun. I will not lie. You know, once you've come
Don't
face to
mess up
face.
my intro, but go ahead.
We're not going in yet.
Yeah.
Hold on.
You know?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. You see, he's so
I'm so pumped.
He's so passionate. It's incredible. But I want to say, me personally, what a privilege this is and an honor this is to be able to sit amongst a person like yourself,
That's very kind.
who has watched technology in our industry, who has watched music, who has watched this business, the touring, all of it. And just to have it packaged and me being around it, I'm like, wow, this is, but I just want to say, like, first of all, thank you for being a role model.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you for enduring the times when I'm sure you're like, what am I doing?
Dude, I couldn't get another gig. I couldn't find another job.
Right.
This is all I had.
So I want to say, you know, congratulations on a life.
Thank you.
You know,
Thank you.
that only you will know from your perspective.
Well, there's a few others out there that know it for
Right.
sure. You know,
But in your own right.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't want to, but the years of experience that, and I know this is a long intro, but I want to do justice to this, but the years of experience, and then I think about, you know, how long I've been doing it, and I'm like, wow, this is incredible. This is incredible. Ladies and gentlemen, introducing today none other than the one and only, the man of the hour.
we definitely don't need two of them.
Robert Scovill. Yay! I mean, you know, like,
Thank you, man.
thank you
Very
for
nice.
what you've done.
Never do another intro.
I'm just going to take that one, and anytime I do another presentation, I'm just going to roll that.
Yeah, it's gonna be. You want my resume? Fine, but you have to listen to this first.
You're considering me for a job? Here, check this out.
Well, we're kind of it's a special one because we're in Nashville right now, and special shout out to the beautiful Ryan Smith for letting us use his office. We're at the Sure Artist Relations office that will probably not be here for a little bit. In a little bit because it's going to Rock Nashville. So thank you so much for letting us use the space. But we just happen to be in the same spot, so why not put the cameras up and knock this out now? So thank you so much for doing this with us, man. I really, really appreciate it. So
Pleasure.
yeah, man. Yeah. Thank you. All right, so this is a time for us to kind of get to know you a little bit more, kind of dive a little bit deeper into some stuff.
Yeah.
I've got some Patreon members that have asked some questions.
Ooh.
Maybe we can go out of the gate with a couple of these questions. First question is from Chris Nelson. Can I work for / shadow Burton?
That's not a first question.
Okay, guys, listen, it's been great. Look at that time.
I love that question, Chris. Thanks. Yeah, low-key, I sent all the questions in.
Ask Scovill if his time mixing Rush on Gamble influenced the design of the S6L.
That's a great question. I don't know how it could have not influenced it to some degree, because that console was pretty special. I mean, you get an imprint in your mind of how things should sound. During that period, that was a really interesting period of console design. I mean, console design was really just starting to really get its legs where we had really good sounding desks for the most part. And I remember the first time we ever brought a Gamble into Electrotech just to evaluate it and took it out on a couple shows. I mean, we all had that kind of moment of, wow, the PA sounds different, Like, why does the PA sound better?
Right.
And it's like the PA doesn't sound any better. It's the console that's making it sound better, So, there was that whole kind of mindset about it as well. It's been really interesting, because kind of context is everything with these kind of things. You don't know maybe even how good it is when you're working on it, other than you feel it, you know the improvement. But it's been really interesting to go back and listen to multi-track recordings that I did during those periods on, because they're all taken right from the preamp. So stuff that was done on Gamble, stuff that was done on Paragon, stuff that was done on Midas of the same band, right? And listen to those two things and you can hear the different consoles. No question about it,
Wow.
So that part of the experience was really, really cool. And then to get into, the kind of the digital design world and the Avid world and start to try to get that imprint of what things should sound like to happen in the digital world. Like we did some really extensive studies while I was there on preamp design, especially by the time we got to S6L, we did some really kind of extensive shootouts, like some double blind shootouts of all the manufacturers' preamp and converter designs, including like an analog path, an older console path. And it was really revealing to have people that we consider golden ears to sit down in a double blind study and say, yeah, that's the preamp I like right there. And it was really shocking what they picked really more often than not. We had it set up where you could listen to any one of 24, 32 instruments that had been recorded at the same time through every console. So like we had one Pro Tools session that had 8 bass drums in it, 8 snare drums, 8 hi-hats that were each one of the consoles. And then we did a re-scramble of that. Like we had a key for it, but we had a re-scramble of that. So like if you went down the line listening to bass drums, it was actually in a different order for the snare drums on the console. So you had no idea really what console you were listening. Yeah. And once we kind of gathered all the data and locked the key, it was like, wow, look at that. That's not at all what the industry thinks they like. It was really fascinating.
Do you know, or could you answer, like what? I'm thinking electronics, I'm thinking capacitors, whatever, to the basic component level. What is it that actually makes a preamp sound different? Or did you get into that?
Well, here's kind of the startling point of it, because we were getting to the point where we thought, okay, maybe what we should do is do preamp emulation. You know, like for the digital consoles, we could do that where we could say, okay, let's do a
Yeah, of
1072,
course.
let's
Of
do
course.
an 886.
Yeah.
So we brought in a lot of really vaunted analog pre's, right, and did a similar kind of study, and it was really startling to see how close they all were when they were linear. Right?
Right.
When they were at their optimum input to
course.
output level
Right.
in terms of spec,
Right.
I mean, man, it was hard to tell them
Tell the
apart,
difference,
you know? And even when we did the console thing,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we were really meticulous with that, making sure that every channel got recorded within a tenth of a dB all the way across the line. I mean, it was so that there was never a fear of, well, I like that one because it's just slightly louder than the other one. They had to be at exactly the same level so you had a fair test going on.
So was that a variable sweet spot, or could you name it a sweet spot, or was it just like your minus 18?
No,
minus 20?
I mean, almost all preamps are designed to have an optimized spec at line level.
That's it.
I mean,
okay. Right.
But as you get past that, you know, obviously as you get way below line level, then some are going to be more noisy than others, some are going to have more distortion.
Yeah.
But as you get above that and start to create the first order harmonics, second order harmonics in it, now they all started to sound wildly different.
Right.
And it was like,
That's
okay, I see why people like the 1072
Yeah.
there, you know.
Got it.
So,
Got it.
you know, in the digital console world, that is kind of the challenge, you know, like how do we get some of that sweetness out of a preamp, because it's the only analog piece of the signal chain. Right. And the challenge is because it's correlated to an A to D converter, it's very hard to get it up to a level where we can get the preamp to show some harmonic plume and not being in danger of overs in the A to D converter.
Gotcha.
Right?
Gotcha.
So, you know, try to get that sweet spot. I mean, we've all mixed on XL4. At least I know where that sweet spot is in that pre.
Correct.
Where it's just starting to harmonically plume a little bit. That's a really great place in that. That's hard to do an A to D conversion and keep them correlated, right? So,
right.
I mean, it was fascinating school. You know, like we talked this morning about learning how to listen.
Yeah.
And that is a listening school.
That is,
Right.
And I mean, that's the first pot in the thing, you know, and it takes it from there. So
I mean, it's really fascinating to do, like to start doing phase or polarity cancellations between preamps, because what you would hear is just the difference in the two pre's.
Right.
Because they were perfectly time aligned, perfectly level aligned.
Right.
So any difference you were hearing was there, you know. So that was revealing as well. Kind of going.
When was the last you guys listened to some preamps like that?
Well, the other thing it taught me, though, I mean, seriously, is that all of the freaking consoles sound great.
Yes.
They all I mean, they were so close, you were just like, why am I worried about this? Now, where it got to be different was in the mix buses of the consoles. That's where there was some pretty wide variance.
Interesting.
And we kind of ran out of time. I won't say we ran out of budget, but we kind of ran out of time to be able to really quantitatively do that study of the mix buses of all the consoles as well, because that's really complex. I mean, that is a really complex thing to do.
Right. The summing is, and I know a lot of studio people, you know, they favor, it's all in the summing. It's all in how things sum that can break or make a record or break or make a sound, because there's lots going on there too. But it's interesting that the preamp, the summing, and then the master bus.
Yeah.
You know, those.
And really, when I say summing, I'm only talking about the master bus here. We were just going to look at mixes through master bus, but it got really complicated because, you know, different consoles had different dB down points at the center point of the stereo bus, blah, blah, blah. And you need to get it where they can, you know, you want them to perfectly cancel so you can just kind of add or visit what the different sonic qualities of that bus are, you know.
Right.
But it was clear. The irony of it is, and I won't give away any of the names here, the least favorable preamp had one of the most favorable buses.
Wow.
Right?
Interesting.
So it made us kind of go, okay, that's what they're liking about that console. It's the bus, not necessarily the preamp.
So now my question to you is, if you had to choose good preamps or good bus, obviously you want both, but if you had
to me, you got to have a good preamp. I mean,
gotcha.
You know, I got to have.
Well, what if the bus just destroys it? I'm just.
Then you go to immersive, where you just do direct out of the channel.
Yeah.
Zachariah
That's good stuff, man.
asks, how much of the gear is essential versus nice to have, but can make do without?
Well, it just depends on what standard you're trying to create when you're doing it, you know. I mean, if I'm working for an artist that has set a bar to a certain level, there are certain things that I'm going to need to be able to do that, you know. I mean, I can get through any gig with any gear if I had to do it, just at any level of
Any gear? Can we put that in film?
yeah.
All right, we got an idea, Ryan. What we're gonna do for another video.
I mean, now that's not to say the gig is going to go well and it's going to sound great, but I can get through the gig, you know.
Yeah. Not just a gig, any gig. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, that's pretty good.
What are your thoughts on that, Burton?
I would have to agree. You know, I couldn't tell you how many situations I've walked into, and you know, it all depends on what it is that you're trying to do, right? I mean, if you have multiple sources and then you have to, you know, create separation, and you know, those things will require certain tools, right? But again, you get to a point where you pick your battles and you set it up as best as you can, knowing the limitations that you have and knowing that it can only go so much and no more unless you transfer onto another level of tools.
I mean, it's completely allocation of resources.
Yes.
Right? I hate to sound like a
Yes.
shop manager here, but you know, if I show up at the gig and there are 6 microphones and a PA,
Yeah.
and the act is 4 singers,
Yeah.
it's like, well, 4 of those microphones are already done. They're going to be singers. How can I best use the other 2 mics to do something else creative with it? We're going to have a show. It may only be 4 singers and stage audio coming off the thing, but that's what the show is going to be.
Yeah.
And then it's up to you to make that 4 vocals work against that back line that's working. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. You gotta meet the moment. You know?
You got to meet the moment, and then to add to that example, what if it was just powered speakers, no processor, nothing for you to room equalize or anything like that? I mean, it's a throw and go, or you got to do what you got to do.
I mean, you know, I mentioned it in the panel session when I first started. That's what
That
it
was it.
was.
That was it.
You know, I
Yeah,
mean, this is what you got.
I remember when I was growing up, it was that. I was telling Ryan, you know, it was just the turning knobs. It was level. That was it. You didn't have equalization.
equalizers, yeah.
No, it was about, and this is where the concept for me was really clear, that my first and foremost job as a mixer is a balancing engineer, because when this stuff started out, it was just levels. But the levels, the decisions were made on how well you heard things, because as you listen to something, you're not just listening to how loud it is, but you're also listening to the frequency content of it, or where's the frequency content, the sonic frequency content that is giving that sound its you know, its signature and whatever, and you're using all of these things to just create balance. So therefore, if something has a strong low end, you match it with something with a strong high end,
Context,
and you know, and you're just creating that balance all along. And it's amazing that in a mix process, you can get so much done with just your faders, you know?
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, I said this, I think, in our first interview together, that, you know, I think people look at this job of mixing as a technical skill. It is not a technical skill. It is a listening skill.
It's a listening skill.
And you're just using technology to reinforce.
Yeah.
That is one of the most viral clips I have
Oh, is that right?
about that. Mixing is a technical skill, not a listening skill. Or a
Listening skill,
Yeah.
not a technical skill.
Yeah, I love that quote
Yeah.
by you. Another request I've been getting is a request to deep dive into parallel compressions for drums, vocals, and maybe others. What's your thoughts on using parallel compression? Are you for it? Are you against it? Is it in moderation? I know some people are purists, that they just want the simplicity with it. I know you can get in the weeds a little bit too, and if you're not careful. With that, especially we were talking with Pooch about this, going to bus to bus, and you can, especially with latency, you can get in some trouble. So talk to me a little bit about, do you use it much?
I do. And
so what do you use it on? And
I mean, I primarily use it on drums. That's the place where I use it a lot. I won't say religiously, but a lot. And for me, you know, making the transition from analog to digital, that was one of the trip points. You know, that you couldn't do parallel compression in digital because of the different bus lengths that you were creating. Like in analog, like if you're going to do a New York style compression in analog, the idea is that you take an aux bus, you go out to a broadband equalizer, a compressor, whatever else you want it to be, and return it to the console just like an effects return,
Yeah.
and add that in with your sources.
And in time.
So there's no latency issue in analog. Everything's happening at speed of light there. There's no problem there.
Maybe
You try to do
because
that-
analog's better. No, I'm joking. No, we're not doing that. We're not doing that.
I
A
did
flag was
not
in there. No, we're not doing that.
So it began.
But we learned, very quickly. I mean, I remember trying to do it on the first PM1D, and I remember thinking, oh, wow, we can't do that here.
Can do wow.
I mean, you can't do that path there and make that work. So it was actually, when I got asked to come in and consult on the venue project at DigiDesign, I was in on the early days of conception, and that was kind of one of the mandates. It's like, we've got to figure out a way to do parallel compression in this world. Now, this predated any delay compensation that was in Pro Tools, anything. This whole idea of having path length be equal in the console at all points. I mean, it was a really, really challenging thing. But we came up with a very clever way to do it in the first venue consoles, the D-Show and Profile. We found a way where we could do that, and it was like, hey, that actually works here. That is certainly a form of parallel compression where we can create New York style compression. We can have processing in there, et cetera, and it will compensate for it at the output. Now, since then, I remember the first night I mean, this is going to sound so weird. I remember the first time I came up with the concept of doing that kind of compression and having it be time coherent outside of the DigiDesign model. And I literally was laying at home asleep in bed. It was 2 or 3 in the morning, and woke up like this thinking, I know how to do it. I know how to do it.
Just like in the movie.
I mean, I literally went running to the office, grabbing paper, flow chart. I know how to do it. And consequently over that time showed a bunch of other people how to do it. Now, since then, it's gotten even more complex, because we have a lot more busing capability now. We have all this bus to bus. We can do we can do 6 layers of bus in SXL now if you want to do it. That can't be automatically compensated, But there's a delay compensation model in S6L now where you can, if you are just routing inputs directly to the left-right bus, maybe you're just using VCAs for your grouping, et cetera, you can create any number of mults, fully processed, et cetera, and it is essentially acting like an analog console in terms of time there. You don't have to do anything manual compensation-wise to do that. Once you start introducing group structure into it, then you have to pay attention to it, and then you have to do some manual work there. But it's so far above what we have had in the past.
For the or newer engineers that want to dip their toes into parallel compression, what would be your recommendation or guide into?
The biggest thing to do with parallel compression, right, is to understand what you're trying to accomplish with it, right? And drums is the great example of it. So, and this all stemmed from the studio. It was the same sort of mindset in the studio when it was being developed in New York. The idea is that if I have a drum, especially if I have a bright drum or a transient drum, we are going to set the level of that drum, the listening level of that drum, really based on its high frequency content. Its impulse is going to hit us, and we're going to kind of stop it and go, okay, that's where the snare drum should be. And it's going to have a tonal content there. Maybe it's very high frequency, it doesn't have a lot of bottom to it, etc. So how do I raise the bottom end of that drum and get it to dynamically sound like I want it to sound? How do I make a fat drum out of a skinny drum, right? Skinny drum's going to get here, and I'm either going to take the top end off of it and make it louder, or I'm going to do something to manipulate it to try to get it to be fatter. The actual problem is a dynamic problem. If we look at that in terms of level, the high frequency is much higher in amplitude than the low frequency end of it, right? But if I shave off all that top end, now the drum's not going to sound natural at all. So why not just leave that peak information there? Let's take another copy of that drum and dynamically take off all that impulse in the top end of it, right? Where we're just saying, okay, that everything below 800 in the drum is dynamically what it used to be. Everything above that is not now. It's much slower. So I'm going to take that peaky drum and add the RMS portion of that drum up with it. And it's going to sound very natural, but it's also going to sound very different. It's going to sound bigger,
So to the doubters that say, man, can't you just pick a good snare drum and a microphone and shouldn't take care of everything?
Well, I still would do it there. It's like, yes, I'm not doing this to compensate for something. I'm doing this to make the snare be able to be louder in the mix and keep its tonality, right? Keep the tonality that I want out of it, right?
Yeah.
I can't just manipulate that drum to do it. And you know, I always love this, you know, where people say to me things like, well, then it doesn't sound natural. I want it to sound natural, you know, like that, whatever drum sound they were in. I go, do you think that's a natural sounding drum? You're listening to a drum that's got so much, I mean, compression involved in its chain before it hit your ears. That's not a natural sounding drum, you know?
Yeah.
Go up and stand by the drum kit. That's a natural sounding drum. We aren't going for anything about that in pop and rock music.
Yeah.
Jazz, okay, gotcha. But in pop and rock music, you know, whew, all bets are off, you know?
Since we're talking about microphones and we're in the Shure office, talk to me about the importance you feel of correct microphones and choice of microphones. And what is your thought process when you go into looking at it? And are you pretty set into like, hey, this is my template that I use for almost everything? Do you like to try experiment? Because I really know the answer to this, but what's your thought process into?
Really, my thought processing really evolves around two things initially. Is an evaluation of how loud that stage is. I need to know how much control, how much pattern control I need in my microphone choices. And then it's a matter of positioning. Can I get the mic in the position that I know I'm going to need? And then after that, it's choosing the microphones that'll do the job. So I'm evaluating the environment first, and then am I going to be able to get it where I want to get it? And then finding the mic that'll do that.
How often do you switch it up? Do you find one, just kind of stick with it, or do you like to mix it up once in a while, just kind of see?
Depends on what music I'm mixing. If it's pop and rock country, like I'm doing now, I've got a mic scheme that I probably am going to use on 80, 90% of the stuff, you know. If it's jazz, if it's Philharmonic, if it's things like that, that all goes out the window and you start anew there, you know. I give you a great example for it. A couple of years back, I recorded an opera. It was actually during COVID. So we ended up with isolated players, right? And we had about a 60-piece orchestra, but like all the winds players had to be in plexi cubicles. I mean, they weren't because of the safety net of the disease, right? So you weren't going to be able to do your standard miking on any of these devices. It was going to require that you have stuff with really tight pattern control. Otherwise, you're going to pick up the box into the microphone. So, you know, like on all these winds instruments, I remember scouring, trying to find a bunch of Beyer 160s because it was a hypercardioid ribbon, you know, because that was going to work the best in the corner of the box. So, you know, again, just kind of examining the environment and then going and finding the right microphone for the thing. I mean, we got it, but boy, it was really challenging to do it. And the person who struggled the most with the whole thing, ironically, was the conductor, because the orchestra just did not sound like the orchestra. Like even in the Decatree, it was just like, wow, that's not really right now, you know? I mean, you just had to kind of re-envision everything you were doing there. And ironically, you know, it almost became like a delay compensation model where we took those close mics and actually delayed them back to the Decatree so that we could add them in and fill it in just as if they were the acoustic space, you know. It was challenging. It was really a challenging project.
One of the things that we've heard on this is with new engineers, the common mistake that they make are they have a good live sounding mix, and it sounds good for live, but the trick is really to glue the mix and make it sound actually tight. What is your advice to that, and what is your theology into making it go from a live mix to a record mix?
Well, I mean, certainly if we're comparing it to record mixes today, right? I mean, the dynamic range is so small on pop music. I mean, what is it? 3 dB maybe of dynamic range in a pop mix now? Yeah. And, you know, the challenge that we have in live shows is that we have, you know, really have a signal to noise problem. You know, we have the signal, which is our mix, and then we have the noise of the audience in the building, right? So, you know, if you want to expose more detail in your mix live, you have to shrink down the dynamic range of it and turn it up to get it above the audience in the room, you know? Like you have to take some of that dynamic range out of your mix to do it. And I've been in environments where I've had to do that, where it's like if I want to hear the things that are happening down at the middle level of my mix, I'm going to have to limit this. I'm going to have to limit and compress it and turn it up, because I'm never going to get over the audience right now, you know?
Sorry, let me add to that also. You know, in an arena, you know, there's so much acoustic smearing that's also involved, right? As compared to if you sat 4 feet away or 3 feet away from reference monitors, and there's things that are going on there. When you experience a dry sound from a PA in an arena and a dry sound from reference monitors in front of you, it's a different feeling.
Completely.
Yeah, it's a different feeling. So, depending on where you're mixing, you might be following certain principles, but because it's being it's passing through all of this air, your decisions may be different, so when you judge that up against a studio mix, it might be something that you don't expect, but because you've done it under those conditions, it can have a different result.
Yeah, this gets to be you can get down the rabbit hole really quickly.
Absolutely.
On this. But here's my take on this, especially in today's world of PA systems, because they are really good today, and they can minimize the effects of the room greatly compared to what we used to do. I mean, things are so much more point source like, so much more near field like. I actually talked about this in one of the panels I was just in outside of yours, where the idea is that we need to build a reference, right? I use that near field system to build a reference and then demand that out of the PA system, right? That's my goal of that, is to make that path a little cleaner, or a little less questionable. Take some variation out of it, But I guess I'll sum it up and say it this way. I'm constantly working on refining and making a better mix coming off the console, constantly, in terms of frequency range, balance, spatial element, etc. Because I live with this principle. Any PA system, how do I want to say this? A good mix will sound better than a bad mix out of every PA system, right? There's no PA system in the world that's going to take a poor mix and make it sound better than a good mix. Mm-hmm. Right. So the better the mix, the better the PA result.
Yes, and I believe the best place to check that or to start is not on the PA.
Not on the PA.
Yeah. It's with reference.
It's building a reference from something. Yeah. I used to do it on near field monitors that I was very familiar with in the studio.
Correct. Right.
But I've since changed that. I actually do it on a small 5-inch PA system now.
Yeah.
Right. And it translates beautifully. I was telling the guys in the other room, our reference curve that we use for cohesion was built on 5-inch Alcons. And we use that as the reference trace when we tune the PA.
So I'll add to that. One of the things that I say that's consistent throughout any speaker system is the mid-range. You can go to a concert system, it'll have more or less subwoofers. The high end, depending on how far you are away from the PA, may act differently. But there is a region in the frequency response that's pretty much guaranteed across your phone, your mix cubes, your PA, and in that mid-range, if things are well balanced, I know that translates regardless of wherever you go.
Yeah. I would tell you that I probably spend more time on that in near field mix than I ever do in the PA.
On the PA, yes, right? Yes.
And this gets back to something that we talked about in our first interview, is you need to find the place where you learn how to do that.
Yes.
And it's not on the PA
It's
system.
not on there's too many variables, too many things working against you for you to make solid judgments, because, again, this PA is traveling through everything. Now, here's another example. I'm right against this wall, right? So if we want to talk about critical distance and a reverberant field, I'm technically in the reverberant field of anything that's out here.
Correct, yeah.
Right? So think about a PA that's up in the air and you're sitting or standing mixing, you're 5 feet off the floor. That's almost the same scenario here. So you're in a reverberant field trying to mix and trying to make, very accurate decisions.
It's why I'm a bit of I won't use this term in this political environment, but I'm a bit of a Nazi when it comes to mix position.
Yeah.
It's like I am going to be making tone level and balance
Every
changes
judgment,
that are going to
yes.
impact the entire room.
Yeah.
You can't put me in the bad spot.
No.
I've got to have a spot that is reflective of the rest of the room.
That's
got to
right.
do it.
That's right.
If not, we're going to have an iffy show.
Yes.
Just human
Yes.
nature.
Yes, that's it. I mean,
Because believe me, production designers have no concept of this. None.
yeah, let's put the pilot in the back of the plane.
Yeah.
Fly it.
100% facing the wrong direction.
Yeah, face it around. Yeah. That's what you do. You know.
But even that, there are times when you have to do that, and you have to
Yeah.
find ways to survive and
Yes,
do that.
absolutely.
You have to get clever with it.
Yes, and I think any good skilled craftsman with experience knows when to pick those battles and knows what to
Correct.
do
Correct.
in those situations.
Yeah, there are times you're not going to win it.
You're not going to win. So it's like here's the container I'm in, and this is what I'm faced with. So I can only get to this.
I would tell you this though, that near field system is my secret weapon for that.
Yeah.
There's a part of me that goes, I don't care where you put me.
Yeah.
If I can pull that up and just see where I'm at, I'll make it work.
Yeah. But I also, like I said, those of you that are mixing out there, as Robert and I are saying, get whatever speaker system you're dealing with, but work off of something that's closer to you first.
Yeah, find something you know.
Yeah, and
trust.
And you can either take it a step further, the mix cube or whatever, or even like a NS10, it's got a certain bandwidth. You can simulate that in any reference monitor. Just apply a high pass and a low pass, and you kind of have a cheat there too. But make sure your mix, and you can hear everything that it needs to exist in your mix in that region. And most of the times, that's going to translate regardless of where you're at.
Yeah, the challenges we have with it, kind of working from studio to live sound, is that, if we're in an environment where we're mixing at 1 Pascal, let's say we're mixing at 94 dB in a studio, and then we want to take that spectral balance and musical balance that we've created and now take it out and put it at 104 or 108 dB. That's different now. Now it's like our whole perception of mid-range has changed there dramatically. So,
Correct.
But, if you can build in easy ways to slope that down,
Right.
and keep it there, because the cool thing about it is if you can. I've said this to many bands. I can get us in rehearsals and get a really great mix sounding on my near fields. The challenge is keeping it. Now, once we get out into all these environments and you start disrupting it on the console to get it to live.
Yes, and that you have to train yourself to lay off. I mean,
you got to discipline.
You got to discipline yourself,
in the
right?
spot,
Yeah, and I guess even if you look at Fletcher Munson, right, and you start to look at the different levels and everything, and you want to see what's consistent across different level changes, I know that whenever I do a PA, I'm always not just on a target curve of the balance of the PA, but a target SPL level that I want to keep at, because
100%.
I know that's what's going to translate room after room. So the more rigid I make those things for myself, I know that I'm going to have more consistency.
Yeah, I actually struggled with it a little bit on the last Chesney tour. I caught myself over time. I'm constantly analyzing what I'm
Why,
doing.
did you just like the music? You just wanted to turn it up?
In a sense, yes. It was my third tour with him, and I got to the point where I knew the music and every one of the cues inside and out.
Right.
And I would find myself getting to the point where it's like, no, that's too loud now.
Right.
I mean, just like the perception of the tonal balances of it was changing.
It's going to change, right?
And I really just kind of had to get myself and go, okay, get it back down.
And then naturally your ears will go into its own compression and everything like that.
Yeah.
But you just said something that I wanted to mention. You just said it. I know the material so well. That's such an important part of mixing.
Oh, it's the part.
Yes.
It's called mixing.
That was another
watching,
nugget from
not sitting and listening.
That was another hidden gem, and I'm pointing it out. Know the material.
Yeah.
All right, you got someone that's listening to this and like, Robert, Burton, I get that, but I'm sitting here on the trenches every day in a club. I get that you guys have the reference monitors and you can do that with what's your advice to the people that are sitting in the front lines? Like, I want to get better. I don't have the resources to be able to set up reference monitors for this. What's your advice to those at that level?
Got enough money for a pair of headphones?
Okay.
I mean, I did it for years on headphones. I mean, for many, many years. And this is completely valid still to this day. Before there were FFT analyzers, before there, any of this dual trace stuff was happening, et cetera, we were kind of doing our own dual trace work by recording that show off the console onto cassette and then listening to it after the show.
Yeah.
What am I doing on the console? Because I guarantee you, if you're making errors on the console, that is translating in the PA somewhere, right? I mean, in my earliest days of this, and I still do it to this day. To this day, I still do this. I will come into the show, like on the Chesney thing, we come in on a Thursday, I put on the workout gear, and I'm working out listening to the last show I mixed.
Right.
100%, top to bottom. So I'm analyzing what I'm doing, and sure enough, I hear things and go, okay, that's what that was. All right, I remember that, So if you're sitting in a club and you're mixing there, how can you not be analyzing what you're doing off of the console? Because you'll hear it. When you're on, especially in that small environment, it's like, okay, there are no guitars on my mix. What's happening here? It's because the guitars are so loud on the stage. It ends up being a mix minus in that environment. So how can I affect that? How can I adapt that? You have to take advantage. You have to not be lazy there. You have to learn what you can learn in that environment, right?
Yes.
One of my favorite things with our video before is you talk about how when you're teaching audio, you do the process of you show them the gain and you show them the path of signal pass, the EQ, and then they turn the fader up, and then they always give you that look of like, okay, now what? Which is the hardest.
It is the hardest thing.
So in the vein of like understanding what sounds good and learning that next portion, what's your advice to people that like, I want to understand what sounds better and how to mix better and how to be a better mixer?
Yeah, it's a deconstructive mindset, right? Like even when I'm listening to a piece of music that's a finished product, somebody's record or CD or whatever, or MP3 or whatever we're using these days. When I'm listening to it, I have two modes of listening. One, I'm either enjoying the music, the lyric content, or I'm deconstructing it. Okay, wow, that's an interesting choice of vocal sound there. Ooh, listen to the effects level on that. Wow, that reverb is really band limited by that. That's really cool. You have to learn that skill of deconstructing and then trying to reconstruct it when you work. And that's kind of what I was getting at. I think the last time we talked is that I can't teach that sensibility. That has to be gone and learned. So that when you're that newbie who walks up on the console the first time and pushes up the drum and goes, okay, I hear it, now what? It speaks to what we were talking, or what I was talking about in the panel session of working with intent, right? Okay, I hear that, now what? Well, that drum's tuned too high for this music. I got to go talk to the drummer and get him to back off the tuning. Now it's a little honky. Maybe I can fix that with some damping, whatever. But okay, I don't want to just do that with EQ. It'll take all the weight away from the drum. You just got to develop all of that toolage to address inputs when you hear them, and that's experiential. That comes from experience. You're not going to learn it from book. You're going to learn it from doing it. Right.
Yes.
One of my favorite things that you've said, Burton, too, is about us being servants. And you give that analogy of being a contractor and building a kitchen, and that even we're just here to serve the artists, right? And to give them what they want, even if they don't know, they still have an idea of that. And I love that with you, and I love that analogy. One of my questions, I guess, to you, Robert, is where do you separate, and how do you, when you're working with artists, how much of it is creating a mix that you feel sounds good, or creating a mix that is replicating the record, or going to the artist and say, hey, what do you want for this? Or is it kind of all the above for that? Because I know it's hard for me, especially with what you talked about, was like, there was times that I felt frustrated and hurt because I thought it was against the mix. If they're saying what I did was wrong, when I'm just a wrong mindset. I'm here to serve them with my tools that I've been giving. Don't get offended by it. Do the job for it. So with you, with where you've gone, what's your mindset with it? Did you have was that hard for you, kind of getting that mindset? I know it was tough for me, and now do you go into these bands of like, hey, I'm going to start here with you and go off, or do you just kind of start with a blank slate?
It's really a relational thing with the band. I've got to interrogate the band a little bit and find out where their heads are on this. Whether their arrangements and their choices of sounds are trying to replicate the record, or just trying to honor it. I mean, they may be going for different sounds, whatever, and then it becomes a matter of you're talking about serving the artist, serving whoever. I always come back. I always seems to land on I'm going to do what serves the music. I'm going to do what serves the song, and I got to get the artist to do that as well. There's going to be milestones. There's going to be little pieces of this that have to honor that piece of music. Like there's important pieces of that to hear. Whether it's the right sound or not, I've got to have that piece of it honored when I'm mixing it. You follow me there? Mm-hmm. So the final thing I'm serving is the music. It's got to be, that part of it's got to be right. I got to have a musical sensibility when I'm pushing and throwing faders. If I have a drum sensibility, I'm going to be very proud with the drums, and that's not necessarily going to honor the music, right? You got to always take it back to deconstructing that music and going, wow, it's really like when it gets to that bridge, I've got to really be having something special happen here. That's the high point emotionally of that song. So what is it in that bridge that's going to make this work? Things like that. You almost got to be thinking like conductor, producer, etc. when you're doing that. I just cannot buy into or get into the idea of what I want to do is just get the faders up where I can hear everything. That is the last thing I want to do. The last thing. There's nothing emotionally engaging about that. I'm going to let the band do all the work. No, you're not. You're a mixer. Mix the show. Mix the show.
What is, I'm sure you've learned everything there is to learn. There's no more left to learn.
No, not at all. Not at all.
What's the coolest trick you've learned recently?
Coolest trick I've learned recently.
Yeah.
Let me ponder that for a minute because I'm going to bet there's something in there. I mean, I've pulled out some tricks that I've used in the past that I'd kind of put away for a while, a couple of things like that with guitars, especially, which are some mic placement things. I mean, probably the coolest, honestly, I think I know what I'm going to say now. You kind of stumped me there for a minute. But, I've been afforded the opportunity on Chesney. I mean, I get a lot of freedom there to do. I mean, I kind of built up that trust with them to do what I wanted to do. And we had a situation on there where we have a bass player named Harmony Kelly, and she is absolutely fantastic. But she kind of sat in the background of that show, in terms of her bass playing. But visually on stage, she is absolutely stunning on stage. I mean, she is captivating, charismatic, everything. I mean, attention is drawn to her. So I needed to kind of close the gap between those two things, between her sound and her presence on stage, right? And I needed to make her one of the guitar players, right? There are 3 guitar players in that band and a bass player. And she was kind of sitting on the bench a little bit, tonally. So I went to her and I said, okay, you up for some experimentation? You ready to hold on to the roller coaster for a little bit? Because it was all based on bass DI, which I have always felt like it's like, no, please, let's get an amp sound and get it there. You would never take a guitar player and tell him, okay, give me just the feed off of your guitar. That's what I'm going to use in the front of house. Why do we do that with bass players? Why do we do that? I just have never gotten it, And I think it's a form of laziness where it's like, okay, yeah, I can hear the bass. The bass, in my mind, especially at live shows, when you can get the bass guitar really, really happening and really in context, everything else falls into place in the mix easy. It's amazing when it's right. That whole low-mid element of it and the diction element of it, when that is right, all of a sudden chord changes make sense. The emotion of the song is different when you can accurately hear a good sounding bass guitar. So, long story short, I talked her into going back to an amp, and I built this little isolation rig for her where I said, I'm going to go back to what I do in the studio for a bass guitar. I'm going to put a FET 47 on her and just see how this turns out. And as it happened, I was kind of either talking online somewhere, I don't remember how this happened, but I was talking online with somebody and they were like, oh, the secret sauce of that is to use a FET 47 and a Shure SM59. And I was like, what is an SM59? Immediately to the internet.
The one after the 58?
Yeah. So I found this microphone, and I mean, it was like a it was used a lot in television production for vocals.
One here, do you?
Right?
Not here.
No? Okay.
That one at home, though.
Yeah. So I thought, okay, seriously, you're kidding me, right? And he goes, no, just try it. He goes, you won't believe it. And he said, you'll put on the 57, it'll be great. And you add in the 59, and all the diction and high mids on the bass just jump to life on it. He said, it's magic, it's secret sauce. So I said, okay. So I built this contraption, we call it the War Wagon, which it uses the cabinet and these two mics and some specialized, I got some pre's that I use there and, some other little secret sauce there. But I'm telling you, man, I pushed up those faders the first time we heard it, and I was like, oh my gosh, I am never not doing this. Never. And, at that point, the second part of the challenge was to get her to listen to it in the ears, because it was going to impact how she played. No question about it. She was going to have a bass now where if she wanted to really dig in and get some really nice grit on that bass, she could do it. Or if she wanted to back out and play, thuddy pad kind of thing, she could do that there as well. So I had to get it in her ears. Once I got it in her ears, I could feel her adjusting to it. And now everybody on stage has that rig in their ears. And it made such a huge impact out front. Just having that bass guitar have that much life and diction in it, So that was really one of the biggest changes I made. I probably would have never had the freedom to do that kind of thing in another camp. I wouldn't have had the freedom to do that on Petty. I might have had that freedom with Rush had we been doing something like that at the time. We kind of, Ged and I experimented a little bit with different distorted devices, pulling together a bass guitar that had combinations of bottom end and distortion on it, etc. But it was nothing to this extent, nothing to this detail. So,
I got a question for both of y'all. That it's been interesting with my videos now that I'm starting to see engineers at a pretty decent level who have never touched analog before and they've only known screens. Do you feel like this advancement with so many options, so many resources at our fingertips has created better engineers? Or do you think it's kind of created maybe some lazy engineers? Because before, especially with the analog stuff, you only had the resources you had at your available, but you had to figure out stuff kind of the hard way, signal flow, all this, and I know it's a different world. But do you feel like there's too many options and it's cluttered it up, or what are your guys' thoughts on it? Because I know you both utilize technology a lot. It's not like you guys don't use it by any means, and you guys have been on both sides of that. What are your?
When I do my personal training, say for example, if I'm in Pro Tools, all my plugins will be analog plugins because it forces me to listen. Right? I don't have a screen in front of me, and I don't I'm using the screen to dial in, let me think about here, and then moving it around. No. Like Robert was saying, even in my EQ decisions, I train myself to be very intentional. Okay, this sound has too much of this. Okay, this sound doesn't have any of this. So, for example, I'll take an SSL plugin, and then I'll go exactly where I think it needs to be. I turn it up. If I turn it up, then I bypass it to verify that that's what I was hearing. And I feel like that starts to make me commit to memory the different sounds of these EQ positions, right? As opposed to the glass now. The glass, it's jack it up, move it around. You're seeing it's moving around. It takes away from me the intentionality that's involved, which I am training my ear, training my mind.
Mixing with your eyes.
Right? And I'm mixing with my ears and not my eyes. So I force myself to get back to listening. And I think that the screens are kind of distracting with that because, for example, you go on a Lavo and you put up some EQ and you're looking at it, but it's responding. Or you may go to another product and turn down some EQ and it's not responding the way, and you might have to dig a little more, or whatever the case is, right? But then your mind is telling you, well, look at what you're doing and look at what you're doing. You'll never think that way on an analog. With something without a screen, right? You'll be chasing after what you really want to come out the speakers, right? And that's, I feel like, I've worked with engineers that took a Pultec at 30 hertz and went all the way, in hip hop, and that was it. And they had no apologies to make, right?
I'll tell you an interesting story about that, because I used to go. I think I mentioned this at the panel. I used to go around doing demonstrations of plug-in versus hardware, right? And Pultec was one of the ones we used, and because this speaks to this idea of EQing with your eyes versus your ears. So one of the things I used to present to people was I would put up the typical kind of Pultec curve,
Right.
boosted and attenuated in the bottom. It creates this kind of
the smiley face
shape.
kinda, yeah.
I was going to, and I used to say, you think you guys can create that with parametric,
Right.
four-band parametric?
Right.
And to a man, almost everybody would say, yeah, you can do it. You can do it. Come on up. Noise into the channel strip, have the Pultec on the screen, and you can EQ the noise to try to get it to fit that shape. And by the time they got to where they could get it,
Right.
if you looked at the channel strip, not in a million years would you do that.
Right. There you go.
Not in a million years would you do that. So I'm going to push back a little bit on what you said about analog. That doesn't happen. It absolutely happens there.
Okay.
People look at a channel strip and think, yes, bell, I'm going to boost. They're absolutely visually confirming what they think they're hearing. Now, if you want to take that away, if you want to just give me 5 blank knobs and let somebody EQ something, I'll say, okay, that's fair. All right.
Yeah.
But a similar temptation is there with screens, of course, where you have a target curve that you're thinking of. I need this thing to sound like this, and you're looking at the curve on the screen and thinking, does that sound like that?
Yeah.
Right. You need to be able to turn that off and go, I'm going to make this be what I want it to be.
Yeah. And I agree with you. My training, personal training, is more of, before I even look or touch or think about what anything looks like shape-wise, it's what am I hearing?
Right. Yeah. You have to do it. The final arbiter has to be, does it sound right?
Yeah. What am I hearing, and what will I try to fix here? But I've seen.
I guess kind of getting back to the original question, do guys have too many choices, et cetera? Yeah, I think it's a challenge. I don't know how you deal with it. I mean, the choices are going to be there, but I mean, that said, there's just so much capability in the products now, and the other thing we have to remember with these that is generational, right? It's way more difficult to take somebody my age or even just a little bit younger and try to introduce them to digital. They have so many preconceived notions about how things work and how they want them to work. Whereas younger generation, they don't see it as exotic at all. I mean, I'll use my son as the example. My youngest son is 21 now, and I've watched him work in Pro Tools, and he's done this all on his own. It's as exotic to him as the toaster is to me. I mean, he just gravitates right to it. Something that would look out of place and be weird for him would be an analog console, I mean, he would look at an analog console and go, what are all these encoders for, So it's generational, no question about it.
I know you guys have seen a ton of advancements in technology, and it's been there's been a lot of it, and it feels like we talked a little bit at the panel. Like one of the questions I asked in the beginning, which was probably not the best question at the gate, but what's been the biggest change in the last 5 years? And you said there was not been much of it, and I agree with that. But I mean, my question now is like, I guess it goes into the future of audio and the future of mixing. Are we shooting for the 1%? And do you feel like there's going to be any massive innovations? And if so, what do you think it might be?
It's a great question. It really is. And, I've worked for manufacturers. I continue to work for manufacturers. And you're always trying to balance this development cycle of, do we build things, like there's got to be an innovation path that is always going to take place in your product line, right? How do we innovate? And because innovation is going to be disruptive, right? It's going to disrupt what people normally know and do. And the mindset you have, it's kind of a Steve Jobs mindset, what do we need to develop that they don't know they already need? They don't even know they need this yet, but we need to develop that. What is that going to be over time here, Because, the thing that really troubles me right now, I'm going to get on my soapbox here a little bit here. One of the things that is really troubling to me in our industry, and I'm going to include the recording industry in that, is there seems to be this energy that says we need to stop and go back to what we used to do. And I think it's romantic. I'm not sure where people are just uncomfortable with progress or what it is, but they're just saying what we used to do is better. We need to stop. And I have a real issue with that. It's like, guys, progress marches on. It's going to go on. This industry is never going to get to a point and stop and then just continue to use the same thing over and over again. Even with the immersive thing, I'm amazed how many people that, honestly, I have some great respect for, have said, no, music should never be anything but mono or stereo. I was like, really? I mean, I understand we've been listening to it that way for 60, 70, 80 years, but you're not even open to the idea of possibly composing and listening to music in a different format? And kind of the same thing in PA systems, etc. Are we really going to be that closed-minded to just say, nah, don't want to open that up. Don't want to open up that Pandora's box. There could be so much incredible learning and discovery that happens when we take those kind of things on. You know, it's not a binary argument. I've said this in print before. This is not a binary thing. It shouldn't feel threatening, you know. Immersive's not going to come in and just immediately replace stereo and mono. It's not a danger to it. It's just another tool in our palette that we can use here. And there are a lot of great applications for it if you use it, you know. I mean, there's a lot of places where it is the right choice. So, a little bit of a soapbox there.
No, you're great.
I think there's definitely a lot more to cover. Even from a speaker system standpoint, and when prediction software comes into play, I think the industry still needs to work on that, because we do have mapping software. We do have software to, you know, tell us how to deploy a line array. But the acoustic properties of the room and what the room is doing is still not incorporated in these programs. Yeah. So for example, you may do a file, and yes, your PA needs to be pinned this way, and you've got a ±3, you know, distribution throughout thing. But then the software says, okay, expect this frequency response, right? But then you go in an arena and then it's hitting glass and it's hitting concrete, and all of a sudden, well, what I hear and what this looks like is not the same, you know? So even that, like, how do we now start introducing the acoustic loading of these venues into this prediction software so we can now have an idea of a more realistic, you know, expectation, right?
It requires data entry and a really, really powerful computer.
Well, I know of, you know, like design softwares that, you know, I think guys out there, the two just needs to shake hands, right? For example, Ease, not Ease Focus, but Ease as a modeling software where you have, you know, you can actually model a room and see its acoustic properties, you know, whether it's gypsum board or whatever the case is. And this stuff has been out. I mean, I remember my first copy of Ease 2001, right? Where you were building rooms and you were seeing reverberant curves, and you know you could tell, you know, DR ratios. You can tell, you know, L50s and clarity ratios and all of that stuff. You can tell as, you know, from a design perspective, and being someone that's watched the industry move, it's like, why is it taking this long to do that? And I feel like, yes, what you're saying is true, but I think we have the computers now can do it. You know, the computers now can do it. I just think that that's something now we need to cross over there. The other thing I was telling Ryan today, you know, to some degree, and I mentioned it in the panel today, you know, being now in NBC in the broadcast world, the room plays a lot into what you're mixing into television. And in the post world, you can clean things up. But what if we can do it from the source? Now, I know there's a few products out there that work right from the source, but if it's a case where we're doing this podcast, but these mics are up and all you're hearing is this room, I fix it after. But what if it's a case where we don't even have to do that because our phones can do that now, or our car phones can do that now? It's like, so I still see that there's room for these things to start being implemented, and again, like you say, just add another tool.
Yeah.
It's just another tool.
Well, I mean, that development's in play. I mean, things like RX and stuff that can deal with it.
Right, which is, yes, it's in play, but it's after the fact.
Yeah.
But if this cable
I mean, that's kind of what I'm getting at, to make that a real-time process.
Real time, yes.
Now you're talking, I mean, you need some serious computing power to be able to do that real time and keep the latency down.
Well, if they, exactly. Well, I know the challenges on the latency, but something that is able to learn as it's doing, it's learning what's on the noise floor, and then it's separating that. Whatever. I mean, I don't know how to do it. I just feel like it would be cool
I think there's some churn going on in the background about those kinds of things.
I hope so.
Because I mean, we can, we're going to be like, I'm prepping to go into the Sphere in Vegas with Kenny Chesney, and one of the prep tools that we use there is, I can take and record my objects off of my console in a Pro Tools session, and then basically just do a Unity blend of those into their Oralizer plugin, and I can put a pair of headphones on and position objects, and I mean, it's in a binaural environment, not perfect, but you can actually interpret a lot of data there and get close. So there's going to be a lot of tools like that, I think, coming. I really do, and I think once AI gets involved in it, that's a home for that. That's where I'm okay with some AI assistance there.
Yes, absolutely.
But in terms of grabbing the environments, I mean, part of the practicality and the reality of it, I think, is that the data gathering is the challenge, right? How do I get this information into the computer? How do I get this information into the computer and do it accurately? Right?
Well,
we struggle right now getting building geometry.
So that does exist because, I mean, anything that's manufactured for construction comes with Sabine coefficients that's listed. And the programs that do it, I think they put it in their database, so it's there. It's just, I feel like the marriage needs
handshake
to happen.
needs to be there.
And that would be very useful for us, very useful for us
if we use it.
Right.
Well, there's hopefully somebody listening that is coming up with the idea right now.
Well, I almost guarantee you there is someone listening that will do it. It's just the way it's going to work.
Yeah.
It's the cool part of it. It's the part that makes me not want to quit. I want to be around to see that, So.
Well, don't quit. Be around for forever.
Which, by the way, of all the things you've seen, right? What was the most or was there a moment where you said, "Wow, audio has changed"?
Certainly the first time I heard line source.
Yes, that happened to me too. Okay, I understand that.
That was a moment of disruption in me where I just thought,
know exactly what you're saying.
I need to understand what's going on there.
I know exactly. Yes, that's a good one.
Right.
That
was it for me, because they were making all the claims and everything, and I was like, okay, come on now.
Yes.
And then the first time I pushed up a fader, I was like, oh,
yes,
cow.
like, huh?
Yeah, and that's played into. I mean, now, I had a similar experience of that. This is going to sound self-serving because my talk tomorrow at 10 is on this. But that plays right into my experience with adaptive PA, with the AW. First time I ever heard that, I went, okay, now wait a minute now.
Right.
What's going on here? Because this is not like these other things.
Right.
Now, what is the deal?
Right.
So, I spent a lot of time digging in and really understanding that. So tomorrow's thing is explaining that to everybody, cool. Kind of going, here's why this works. I'm going to show you how this happens. So
very good.
Well, man, I appreciate you. I Appreciate your time.
Dude, I appreciate you. You're so good about pulling me into these things.
I'm going to keep doing it. I'm going to keep doing it.
That's exactly what I said to him.
I'm going to keep pulling all y'all in.
Listen, it's either he writes a book or you pull it out of him.
Yes.
Or do both.
Yeah.
I'm going to write a book, but it's not going to have anything to do with audio.
It's going to be the best food spots
Ways
on
to
tour.
avoid interviews.
Yeah.
Seriously, me and my wife are contemplating a book.
Yeah?
Yeah. So, because we've been together really almost since my start of this. I mean, we met not long after. So we've been thinking about doing a book that is like on one page, like we'll just go a timeline through all of these events that we've shared together. And one side is going to be my perception of the event, and the other side is going to be her perception of the event.
And can you just ignore all the NDAs you signed and just give it all to us?
Yeah.
Face value 100%.
I mean, what are you going to do? Kill me? I'm going to be, it's like, I'm going to be, okay, all right, whatever. I ain't going to have any money by
Like,
then. So.
why are you suing me? You knew how much you paid me. You know I don't have this. You guys look back at the books and see if you're going to ever get that.
Not going to get any money out of me. That's for sure. But thank you, man. That's great.
Yeah,
I
thank
appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you so much. And we'll send you out again. Hopefully at the Sphere.
Yeah, we'll try to get that to happen. Once I get in there and I understand the mechanics of the logistics of the building and everything, I'm sure we'll be able to make something happen. So
Cool.
problem is, that the challenge at Sphere is that when you're not playing, they're using the building for other things. Right? There's 3 movies a day that happen. Like you have to strike the stage, push it all back, and then rush it all back out to get ready for your show. So logistically, it's really a challenge. Like when we're in for rehearsals there, I think we rehearse. I think we're one of the first bands that's going to get a few days in the Sphere. I shouldn't call it the Sphere. It's in Sphere to rehearse, and we go from 12 a.m. to 8 a.m. That's the rehearsal period that you're allowed, because they're using the building the other part of the day. So there's some challenges there for sure.
Well, hopefully more to come with that.
Yeah. Maybe we'll do a Sphere special.
Yes, please. Well, cool. Well, thank you very much, sir. And
Yes.
yeah.
Thank you.
It's an honor.
Make good audio, everybody. Come
Yes.
on now.